Hi there. Time to read. Dingoes are dinner time. It's the last time we'll read together this year. Can you believe it? It's been crazy. But I wrote some things on the board behind me to remind us of the elements of our book that we've been talking about, our story. I've got our characters here. In this book so far, we've had Jack and Annie, Teddy, the kangaroo, my head's out of the way, the Joey, and a koala. And the setting, the main setting, oh, I'm sorry, there was Morgan too in the characters. She wasn't really part of the book, but they talked about her, so we just threw her on there too. The main setting in our story was Australia. That's where Jack and Annie headed in the Magic Treehouse. But, of course, the book always starts in Frog Creek, Pennsylvania. So we'll also have that as our settings. I just didn't write that up this time, but I'm sure you already have it on your list. Major events in the book so far. We talked about the kangaroo leaving its Joey to distract the dingoes. That was one of the things that happened. And last week she came back for her Joey. So that was good. It was a problem that was solved in the story. Also, there was a wildfire. That was a big problem in the story. And last week that was solved also. Remember Jack and Annie went into the cave. Teddy led them in there. And they saw the wall that had those ancient writings. And when they ran their hands along the ancient writings, it was kind of like magic. And it made the rain start, and that put out the fires. So that's really what we have so far. Today we're going to finish the story. Chapters 9 and 10. At the end of chapter 8, Jack and Annie went back into the Magic Treehouse, and now they are back in Frog Creek. So one of the problems that has not been solved yet is the man, Teddy, as the dog, Teddy. He wants to go back to being a man, one of the Knights of the Round Table. And now that Jack and Annie have the fourth gift from the kangaroo, hopefully that will happen in our chapters 9 and 10. Let's see what finds out. Let's see what finds out. I guess we'll find out is what I mean. Chapter 9. What boy? Welcome back, came a soft, lovely voice. Jack opened his eyes. It was Morgan. They hadn't seen Morgan in a long time. Morgan, cried Annie. She threw her arms around the enchantress. Jack jumped up and hugged Morgan too. It's good to see both of you, said Morgan. Arf, arf! There's Teddy. Oh, there she is. Maybe you've never seen a picture of what Morgan Le Fay looks like. Look at how tall she is. Looks like Annie's going to be handing over the gifts, and there's Teddy down at the bottom. And it's good to see you too, Morgan said, smiling at the little dog. Look, said Annie. She reached into Jack's pack and pulled out the piece of painted bark, a gift from a kangaroo. We have all 4 gifts now, said Jack. Good work, said Morgan. She picked up their first gift. It was the pocket watch from the Titanic. Once upon a time, there was a boy who wasted time, Morgan said. This watch teaches him that time is very precious. It must be used wisely. Morgan picked up the second gift, the eagle's feather from the Lakota Indians. Sometimes the boy was afraid to stand up for himself. She said, the eagle's feather teaches him that a small creature can be one of the bravest. Who is this that she's talking about? Aren't you curious? Let's keep reading and find out. Morgan picked up the lotus flower from the forest in India. Sometimes the boy did not respect nature. This flower teaches him that nature holds many wonders. Morgan picked up the piece of bark with the painting of the rainbow serpent. Sometimes the boy didn't want to study other times and places, she said. This painting teaches him there is a mystery, magic, and wisdom in the traditions of ancient peoples. What boy? Jack asked. Good question, right? Who are you talking about? Said Annie. Morgan didn't answer right away. She placed her hands on Jack and Annie's shoulders. Thank you, she said. for letting this boy learn his lesson. Thank you for breaking the spell." "What boy?" Jack asked again. "Arf! Arf!" Jack and Annie looked over at Teddy. Then something magical happened. In a flutter of time, in the spin of a whirlwind, Teddy was changed. He was no longer a dog, he was a boy. So she was talking about Teddy all along. And there he is. Teddy the boy. Chapter 10, last one, dream time. The boy was on the ground on his hands and knees. "Meet my young helper from Camelot," said Morgan. The boy glanced up. He had a friendly freckled face and twinkly dark eyes. His hair was the same color that Teddy's fur had been. He looked a bit older than Jack, about 10 or so. "Am I back?" he asked. "You're back," said Morgan. The boy leaped up and hugged her. "Thank you," he cried. "And I hope next time you'll ask before trying the spells in my spell book," said Morgan. The boy grinned sheepishly. "I promise." Then he looked at Jack and Annie. "I accidentally changed myself into a dog," he said. Annie laughed. "But at least I got to have exciting adventures as a dog," he said. "You were a great dog," said Annie. "We liked you as Teddy. What's your real name?" "If you like, you can keep calling me Teddy," the boy said. "Or how about Ted?" "Okay, Ted," said Annie. Jack just nodded. He was still in shock. "Ted is training to work in my library at Camelot," said Morgan. "He has a rare gift for magic." "Cool," said Annie. You helped us a lot, Ted," said Jack, finally finding his voice. "Oh, no, it was the both of you who helped me," said Ted. "You helped break the spell, and I found new stories to take home." "You did?" said Annie. Ted nodded. "The story of the Titanic, the story of White Buffalo Woman, the story of the Wounded Tiger, and the story of Rainbow Serpent," he said. "I'll write them down as soon as I get home, so people can read them in Morgan's library." That's cool. "And home is where we must go now, I'm afraid," said Morgan. "Oh," said Annie sadly, "that's too bad." "Yeah," said Jack. He was sad too. "I know we will meet again someday," said Ted. "I hope so," said Jack. "Me too," said Annie. "Bye." She started down the ladder. Jack pulled on his pack. With a heavy heart, he followed. When they got to the ground, they looked up. Morgan and Ted were at the window. They both seemed to glow in the late afternoon light. "The magic treehouse will return for you soon," said Morgan. "I promise." She waved, and they waved back. "Goodbye, Jack and Annie," she said. "Arf!" said Ted. In a flutter of time, in the spin of a whirlwind, the magic treehouse was gone. For a moment, Jack and Annie stared at the empty tree. "Ready for dinner?" Annie asked softly. Jack nodded. He felt dazed as he walked silently through the Frog Creek woods. Then he came to their street. The sun was setting. A flock of blackbirds flew through the silvery pink sky. Annie broke their silence as they headed for the house. "We had great adventures with Ted, didn't we?" she said. "Yeah," said Jack. "It was like..." He searched for the right words. Like living in dream time," said Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. He smiled. That was exactly what it was like. There they are, headed home. So, I guess Jack and Annie will have to find something else to do in the treehouse. They're going to have another adventure for another day. Hope you've enjoyed reading with me. I know it's been a little different than normal class time, but I'm glad we got the chance. Take care.